Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Go over some data points, a little bit of news. Well, it's all news, right? We're all news here. That's why you're all here. But some breaking news related to sales tax payment, and then we'll take some questions. No new deaths over the last 24 hours, so good news there. Obviously, the virus is in our community, it's in our country. High-profile people can get the virus just like everybody else, so it's still here, and if it gets someone with pre-existing conditions or certain circumstances, it can be deadly, so we need to remember that. Looking at testing, about 1,600 tests received back since yesterday, a little bit lower than usual because of the weekend. 7-day rolling average, 0.67%, so that is very good. That is the saliva and diagnostic numbers. New York Forward now updates both, but the New York Forward website doesn't have a 7-day average yet. They will in short order as they are catching up to us with the 7-day average. Hospitalizations, 17 individuals in the hospital, 1 in the ICU. So that's good. We had a trend last week where the number, I think, got to 22, and now it's going back down. So good news there. Out of those in the hospital, 10 are Caucasian, 6 African American, 1 of another race. Positive cases, 4,319 positive cases, up 9 since yesterday, so we have 9 new cases. Out of the 9 cases, 1 is travel-related from the state of Wyoming. 1 is related to a household contact, so that individual was already in a quarantine. And 7 community spread, of which 5 of those are from a known source. So we've been able to effectively quarantine and box in that risk to the community. Monitoring 197 active cases, down 15 from yesterday. 3,920 people have recovered, up 24. Looking at the impact of the cases related to sex, 2,458 female, 1,861 male, 468 cases under 19 years of age, 892 cases in their 20s, 568 in their 30s, 522 in their 40s, 630 in their 50s, 464 in their 60s, 330 in their 70s, 281 in their 80s, and 164 cases in their 90s. Related to testing, a reminder to the public that there's multiple testing sites in the community, whether it's the Syracuse Community Health Center, Water Street location with Upstate, Krause has a location, St. Joe's has a location, your doctor, depending on what practices, has testing. Specifically for back-to-school testing, we have opened up NBT Bank Stadium for 2 options, one being the saliva screening test, which some parents like better than the nasal swab. With that, you need to pre-register with Upstate. You can do that online with MyChart, mychart.upstate.edu to register, or you can call 315-464-2582, select option 4. The wait times on the call still may happen depending on when you're calling, based off of volume, but Upstate has staffed up for that as well, so we recommend going online and getting an appointment scheduled. In addition to that, we have now our partner Cayuga Health, also at MBT Bank Stadium. I was out there on Friday looking at how it's being run. You can come. We encourage people to pre-register at cayugahealth.com, but you can just show up as well, and then you get registered there. And that's a nasal swab. The benefit of that is that nasal swab at 1 o'clock each day will go to Cayuga Health, where we have our rapid testing machines. Rapid meaning 4 hours, not the antigen 15-minute test that some other entities have. And they get processed quickly, and then we can start to let people know where they stand. Again, testing is available Monday through Friday from 9 to 1. I got the question, why 1 o'clock? Why not do it till later? Well, because at 1 o'clock we want to get the tests to the labs so that we can quickly get a 24-hour or close thereto turn time for the student and or the teacher. I want to thank the governor's office for adjusting the guidance for returning to school after COVID symptoms. You heard me talking last week that we need an either a doctor's note or a negative COVID test, and the kids need to get back to school. That is now the rule. So it is now an either a doctor's note or a negative test. A negative test is probably easiest. Again, I want to thank Dr. Gupta specifically with working her channels through the State Department of Health, but that's something that we advocated for, and that will streamline this process now. Before, last week, you get a negative COVID test, then you got to go to the doctor, you got to wait to get into your doctor, then get the doctor note. Now, it's either you go to your doctor, if your doctor isn't comfortable giving you a note saying you can go back, then you got to get a test. But if your doctor is comfortable, you can go back, or the easiest way is to get a COVID test. Again, we have the saliva test if you're not wanting the nasal swab, but we also have the nasal swab, both of those essentially 24-hour turn times at MBT Bank Stadium. So that's very good. Related to our financial picture, we received a sales tax payment today. Very, very good news. The hard work of the community and the hard work of the universities and those getting college kids back has certainly helped. Our sales tax payment was $10 million more this period of time than it was last year. So certainly that puts us on a trajectory with our budget that is kind of where we were forecasting. We didn't forecast that we would have a $10 million positive sales tax payment, but it puts us in the spot where we can probably land with -7%, -8% on the year. And so the really good news there is that we're not going to have to make any more workforce adjustments for the month of October due to this information. So again, it shows you that even though at times it's a lot of work to keep the economy open and to get kids back to college, and there was a lot of anxiety about bringing back in 30,000 kids in the community, there is no question that that spending power drove this payment. There's absolutely zero doubt. So again, one of the benefits here, our numbers for students for our nine higher ed institutes, our positive cases are 127 over almost 2.5 months. That's pretty remarkable that that's all we've had when you talk about all those students, 127 cases. And what's the upside? Is the employment. We're a community that welcomes in these individuals. We want these individuals to graduate and stay here and live here. But that spending power, we were, our last payment was negative, -8% on a cleanup payment and -10% on the real payment. This payment came in over 33% to the positive. What's the difference? Our 30,000 kids that came back into the community. I know back to school spending certainly helped. And I know some of these projects being done around the community and some of the projects being done at houses is helping. But overall, a big deal because of this increase in this payment. We will not have any more workforce disruptions in October. Again, assuming our second October payment goes well later this week, that will probably extend through November, but we need to see where that is. Again, a reminder, when you're paying school taxes, you can mail in your school property taxes to your town. You don't need to do it in person if you don't want to. They will get a receipt to you. And again, on the stimulus front, there's still talks about a stimulus. Even though we got good economic news today, what this means is that all of the painful decisions we've made to date, looks like we won't have to make any more for the next 30 days. It doesn't mean that we aren't losing money. We are. So certainly the need for stimulus to help local governments stabilize in 2020 and going into 2021 is certainly still there. Very happy to see that the White House came back with an offer larger than the Problem Solvers Caucus, $1.62 trillion. Hopefully the House and the Speaker and the White House can get something done and get it done quickly to help out American families. and help out businesses going into a time of year where there's a lot of unknowns related to how the virus will react. And certainly it will help us out really going into 2021 if we do get some stimulus. Saying that, happy to take questions.
Sales tax, that's not just $10 million more than a COVID payment. That's $10 million more than last year when things were booming.
Correct.
What do you make of, where did that, you didn't even break even. You hit $10 million more than that.
Correct.
You think it's pent up energy? People want to get out there and do things?
Yeah, I do. I think you had a lot of folks are spending money around the house, pools, hot tubs, all these things, back up demand from a surge in that. So I think you have some of that. I think you have some very large economic development projects going on in the community that has an impact. Restaurants having increased capacity outdoors helps. If you talk to any restaurant owner downtown, that plays a role. The mall was open for this payment, and then without question, bringing back almost 30,000 students into the community they're going to spend money, right? So that we didn't have those kids in Q2. We had them for most of Q1. We got them back. So Q1, 4.7% growth. Q2, minus 20% growth. Q3, assuming we have 1.5 payments left, assuming they don't go in the dumps, we're at 3.3% growth. So I think what you see is that the economy's, fundamentally looks like it could recover here if we can get the economy open and keep it open. And again, that shows you how important it is, everything that we did, that Syracuse University did, and how critical that is. No more disruptions to our workforce for a period of time at least. And so we can continue to provide the services, keep people gainfully employed, and they'll continue to contribute. But good news, it wasn't expected. When we got the number, we even double-checked the number. We thought we were going to have a good payment compared to the past. This one's certainly better than expected.
I know you get a main payment and then a cleanup payment. Do you get one each per quarter?
No, we get multiple per quarter. We have one cleanup, and then we have one more. We probably won't have that last Q3 payment before our budget on November 4th.
Is it the same number of each type of payment per quarter?
No, some are larger traditionally than others.
But I mean, the number of payments, is it?
Correct.
How many checks do you get a quarter?
Let's see here.
I'm just wondering how often these come in.
Oh, there's a schedule. There's about four to five a quarter. We can get that to you, Andrew.
Ryan, do you have the actual number from last year and the number from
Yep.
today?
So last year the payment was $27,540,000 essentially. This year $37,800,000.
And the 127 positive cases, that's considering SU, Lemoyne, ESF, OCC?
That is Onondaga School of Therapeutic Massage, St. Joseph's College of Nursing, Krause School of Nursing, Syracuse University, SUNY Upstate Medical, SUNY ESF, Bryan and Stratton, Onondaga Community College, and Lemoyne College.
Are these numbers strong enough that you could consider bringing people back that have already been furloughed?
No. We're not out of the woods. If you saw we were concerned that if this number did not get to the point where we weren't -10, we really needed to get to about -5 without having to make more disruptions. Certainly it's on the better side. The problem being we don't know how this virus is going to respond in the fall. You see certain hot spots in downstate New York, and you see the state's response. We don't have those challenges now. I don't know the specifics of those responses, so I don't know if it's a heavy-handed response or not. But certainly, there's just so much unknown that we need to, if for some reason sales tax year over year in the next few payments became positive, meaning we're making money now, our budget, we're still off $20 million in sales tax for where we were budgeted. So If somehow we made up $20 million in 2020, certainly we would look at that point at bringing back some of the furloughed positions.
That
With those
20 million is the 7 to 8% you're talking about, that you're down?
Yeah, so now it's actually less than that, Tim, from a percentage standpoint. We think we're going to end the year at 7 to 8% loss. But yeah, our budget over 20 to 21, we're down 7.45%. So we think hopefully we can stay there.
With those hotspots downstate, are you planning on doing anything more to ensure that there's more enforcement of social distancing guidelines up here to make sure that we don't end up going the same way as Rockland County and some of the others?
Yeah, so we, through our contact tracing investigations, we have a pretty good grasp of what drives cases. Today, not a lot of cases, right? The percentages have been good. Our positive rate has been good, but we had last week was a busy week with cases compared to a couple weeks before then. But so what were the trends that we saw? That's what we look at. The trends that we saw weren't really lack of mask wearing or parties. What we saw was that people were going to work sick. And during the course of a day, that can lead to others getting infected. And remember, one sick person, if they live with somebody, there's a 25% chance that that person, based off of what we've seen, is going to probably end up getting it. So one really means more than one, just from people's living arrangements. So what we need people to do is, we understand it's the fall, we understand it's going to be the winter too, and people are used to having a sore throat and saying, all right, I'm going to have a cough drop and I'm going to go to work. They're used to having a cold and going to work. We just can't do that in the pandemic. We need to get a test. The turnaround times are more than adequate right now. People are used to working remotely. Businesses need to cooperate with that, with their employees, because it's in their interest. You don't want your whole workforce being taken out. So that's just what we need to do. There's too many cases where sick people are going to work, and whether they gave it to other people at work, there certainly was examples of that. But if we can get back to that basic, and everybody's getting a test before they're going in, there's people that work for me today. I'm not going to talk about who they are, but they said they had a sore throat. I said, you know what the answer is. They didn't come in. They're working remotely. They got a test. These are all the things that we need to do until we can get the vaccine and get the vaccine distributed.
Over the summer, you showed us that bubble flow chart of how the socializing among high schoolers spread to cases. Can you verbally say how one person going to work led to X number of cases? Do you have any examples?
I don't have, Andrew. I think it's too early for that right now with what we saw last week, because we haven't had the 2-3 weeks to where that you can connect it all. But we had gaps in the investigation that we put out to the public where employees were going to work sick and people could have gone in. So we may end up seeing people get sick from that. We'll find out. As you can see, and what we've seen very publicly over the last week, is that you can test negative 1, 2, 3, 4 days in a row, and then test positive. And so the situation down in Washington, D.C., to see the President of the United States, you need to test negative. That's the rule. Somebody tested negative but was still carrying COVID, and then it spread, right? So that's that we know that can happen. So that's why it's important that people cooperate with contact tracing investigations. We get people in quarantine that need to be there, so we can try to box that in anytime we have a threat. But overall, I think 0.67. That's a 7-day average. It's a very good 7-day average for a community our size, and we're doing very well. But we could always strive to do better.
Did any of those cases involving workplaces prompt the county to inspect to see if they were following masking or distancing guidelines?
I don't know the answer to that, Tim. I think we would certainly, there were a couple more concerning situations last week, so I don't know if our investigators went out and have done that yet, or if they will be. We aren't going to tip our hand with what we might be doing.
Has the county cited or ticketed any businesses for not following guidelines?
Yeah. a bunch. We've gotten fine payments too.
Do you
So-
have any numbers on that?
I don't, we can get you all of the various tickets we've issued and those who have paid and those who have not, but we have fined people and we have been paid, and we have fined people and we're still waiting on payment.
How many inspectors are there that can go out?
We have a team of a legal inspector, at times part of our public health, and then probation officers. We're not going to advertise where we're going or whatnot. It's all, and we work with SLA from the state. They often send in some of their complaints where they may have concerns. We certainly get feedback from people, and then we take a look at the information we have, and we'll warn at times, and then we'll ticket at times. But we've done that, and we continue to do that.
You're close with a lot of county executives. I'm wondering how close you are with the Broome County executive, and if you've offered any guidance or resources to what seems to be an uptick there, their most number of active cases yet.
Yeah, I was going to call Jason. These things can go quick, right? The virus is pretty potent, and then it looks like in the southern tier, they had a couple clusters in Chemung County with County Executive Chris Moss, and then Jason Garner in Broome County, and that's putting pressure on their numbers, and certainly their rates are higher. I think I don't know what they were doing from testing protocols and what infrastructure they have in place, but I was going to call Jason and see how he's doing and see if what are some of the things they're seeing and some of the lessons we've learned that have worked for us. But yeah, we get along, we talk a lot as county executives and share best practices, and I think there's 18 of us in the state, and we've all kind of had a bond throughout this process.
Just circling back to the people coming into work sick, is there a setup for where that individual could be penalized if they knowingly go
No.
in sick, or is that on the business if they create a spreading event?
It's not. It's only on a business if they're not following rules, right? Each day there's 2 cases of community spread where we don't know the source, right? So we can't penalize people for getting sick. What we can do is inform the public on examples of people, how they are finding pockets of the virus and how they can modify their behavior to keep themselves and their families safe. If a business is not following rules, that's different. And then we find that. We can't find somebody because of a hearsay, I was there or whatnot. We have to have evidence. And again, we have to investigate, or else we're spinning our wheels and wasting our time. So once we do that and once we investigate, we have evidence, that's when our team usually issues tickets.
And then just pivoting to school testing as well, are you planning on reintroducing having any testing sites pop up at school grounds if folks aren't able to make it to NBT Bank?
Yeah, we're going to do, well, what we're going to do is asymptomatic testing, screening. I'll talk about that on Thursday, how we're going to do that. And we'll see. If we have a school that has a cluster, and we haven't seen that yet, what we would call a cluster based off of transmission in a school, then yeah, we might bring the medical teams to the school and ask everybody to be tested. And we can do that if there's a cluster. So, but we're going to put forward on Thursday our plan for screening asymptomatic programs within all the different schools, and then we'll roll it out at 1 or 2 of the schools, and then we'll implement it into the all of them at some point.
What does that screening process look like? Is it temperature taking? Is it answering questions?
No. This is testing. So they already have to do temperature taking as they come into the building now. But this will be testing, and again, we'll talk more Thursday about what the method is behind it and the rationale behind it. But certainly, we want to find pockets of the virus in these buildings and have a program and a protocol, especially as the weather starts to change. And again, we'll be working on flu shots and various things and various campaigns to make sure that these kids are getting their flu shot, and the employees as well, so that school buildings are as safe as possible as the weather starts to turn.
Governor Cuomo expressed a lot of frustration today with, and I think it was mostly directed at downstate, but he talked statewide also about localities not doing enough to enforce his executive laws on masking, group gatherings, social distancing, and I think at one point he even said, you know, if you're walking down the street and you're within 6 feet of other people, you know, you should get a ticket. Do you feel like Onondaga County is doing enough in that regard?
Yeah, I think the data speaks for itself, and I don't know enough about the clusters. I see the clusters, I see the data, and but in these counties and in Brooklyn, I don't know enough about the behavior or the contact tracing efforts to tell the story. We listen to the rhetoric from the governor, and we understand his frustrations there. But there's also just a fiscal reality. You're imposing unfunded mandates on governments at the same time you're cutting our budgets. So I think we're partners. We haven't had that problem in Onondaga County. And if we see clusters, we track everything, right? So we're tracking zip codes, we're tracking towns, we're tracking streets at times if we think there might be a cluster. And so we haven't seen those, we haven't had those. Our colleges have done better probably than any other colleges. So overall, we don't have those problems right now. And I don't think we will have those problems because of what we're doing. But we are sensitive to language. I know the governor wasn't talking to us, but certainly language like we're going to fine local governments, that's language that certainly any county who's been ground zero in this fight versus virus would take a little bit of exception to. Other questions? Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, good day on data. Good day. First time we've seen sales tax payment in the black in a long time.